Cowboys at Raiders preseason recap today on Night of the Shield. Welcome everybody back to another episode of Night of the Shield. I'm Jason Smith, aka The Knight, and today we are going to be going over that little matchup when the Cowboys visited Las Vegas, and it didn't look too good. In fact, complete transparency, I want to be completely transparent when I do this. This is recording number 2. Not number 1. This is recording number 2. Why is that? Because I had a whole lot to say about the quarterback position, and the minute I ended the recording, shut everything down, Antonio Pierce took the podium and announced that Gardner Minshew was the starting quarterback. We'll get into that in a second. But I want to first start off with the defense. A lot of people are a little concerned. I'm not. A lot of people say, well, we looked horrible, and we did. There's no disguising the idea that we haven't necessarily looked the way everybody portrays it. I say it every year, and here we go. Brace yourselves. When optimism meets reality. Does that mean we're not a good football team? No. Do I think this defense is not going to be as advertised? No. I believe this defense is going to be good. In fact, I'm going to give a lot of credit to Antonio Pierce for playing our starters on defense. I personally think he plays them a little too long. I think Jack Jones was way out there way too long. And there may be a reason to that I'm just not aware of and not going to be aware of, and I'm fine with that. I like the fact that that's what preseason ultimately is for. To find out what is wrong and fix it before the regular season starts. I said it last week. I'd rather not have the excuse than have the excuse that our starters didn't play and they got to get their football legs under them. This team should be ready to roll week 1. That doesn't necessarily mean either that this team is going to be at its peak week 1. I still think with some new pieces, some rhythm, all that is going to have to take place before they start playing at a high level. But Antonio Pierce solely projects this defense to be the strength of this football team, and I have no problem with that personally. So, is the performance worrisome? No, it's not. Number 1, it's preseason. Number 2, it's not like the whole starting defense was out there for quarter after quarter getting blown up. It wasn't the case. And if anybody thinks that this defense throughout the season ain't going to have its ups and downs, is also sadly mistaken. You got to take preseason with a grain of salt. It's primarily to preview and evaluate in positions that you're unsure of. And I think it's safe to say that we know what our starting defense is. We know who the players are at this point. We know the secondary. We know the defensive line. We know the linebackers. It may be interchangeable throughout each play, each down, each series, but we know primarily what our defense is going to be. I would make the same argument on the offensive side of the ball as it pertains to the wide receivers, our offensive line, our tight ends, even our running back situation. Even though there's a few question marks there, we primarily know what the running back situation is going to look like week 1. We know what the offensive line, if healthy, is going to look like eventually, with maybe one in particular, which is that right guard position. It might not start off the way we thought it would, but I think it'll develop to be that in a few weeks. Again, take it with a grain of salt. I try to keep one thing in mind. I'm a fan. I'm a fan first, and I'm a self-projected, I don't even know what I'm just here to talk football, dude. I'm just here to give an opinion, to get excited, to talk about my love, not only of the game, but my love and passion for the Las Vegas Raiders now. But I'm an Oakland guy. So, it is what it is. Okay. Followed them when they went to LA. I followed them even more when they came back to Oakland. I had season tickets from 95 till closing. So again, my history with this team goes way back. It doesn't mean I know everything. In fact, I know little to none. And the reason I say that is because we're going to go ahead and jump right into the nuts and bolts of this whole thing, which is the quarterback situation, which Again, I told you this is the second recording, okay? I wasn't impressed, not at all. I haven't been all offseason, not with the reporting of how these guys are playing or what I've personally seen now in 2 preseason games. And what I said in that last video is I said this, and if I have to release that video, the footage to prove it, I can, but I don't need to. This is exactly what I thought. It's a tale of 2 tapes. It's a tale of 2 different styles of quarterback. And it's funny because anyway, let me get to it. ADD, squirrel. I'll stay on track here. I thought they were going to give it to Aiden O'Connell. And I thought the only reason why they would not give it to Aiden O'Connell is because of Minshew's mobility. And I'll elaborate on that more when I get to Minshew. But the reason I thought it was going to go to Aiden O'Connell was because I think it was pretty adamant that Antonio Pierce likes Aiden. I think they go back to last year. I'm sure that was an emotional period for both Antonio Pierce and Aiden O'Connell. And I do believe that there is a small bond there. I don't think there's any contract in between the two about, the love for one another or anything like that. But I do believe that there is some history, and where history is, there's some loyalty that goes along with that. Now, I also felt that Aiden would get the nod because I believe, and I still believe this to right now, that Aiden throws a more accurate football and Aiden does better with ball placement, meaning Aiden puts the ball more consistently where the receiver can make a play versus not. Sometimes a quarterback can put a ball in a position to where it needs to be right there. It's catchable. It's hitting somebody in stride. It's a perfect pass. Other times, quarterbacks have to have a skill set of putting a ball in a certain area, which only allows the receiver, the recipient, to have the best opportunity to catch the football and make a play. I feel like Aiden's better at both those than Gardner Minshew. Personal opinion, not fact. The issues that Aiden had primarily was pressure. In an ideal world, we would say our offensive line is good enough to hold it down and give Aiden the time needed to process and move plays. But against a backup defense, he made a crucial mistake yesterday. Not only did he get sacked, but he also threw a pick 6. And Antonio Pierce even said it's fair if we're going to talk about the good that we definitely talk about the bad. And I'm not saying that this was the nail in the coffin because I beg to differ. Because if you look at Gardner Minshew's play, yes, he may be more mobile and he can definitely make plays. He's a dual threat quarterback, which is what I talked about in the last video as well. But my negative comment towards Gardner Minshew was I don't believe he has control of his mobility. Meaning, I think when he breaks containment like that and he's running wild and trying to make plays, he needs to do a better job of calming down and really viewing the field and making better decisions on the run. That doesn't mean that he cannot make the play. It's not a guarantee that a positive thing's going to happen when he does that. There's not a sense of confidence, I feel, when he breaks the pocket that there's going to be this wide open receiver running downfield that he's going to hit. He looks a little shaken. He looked a little reserved yesterday. And that could be due to pressure. Now, maybe that fact that he is now the starting quarterback will propel him forward. It could. The other argument that I made, and I did say this because I didn't project Aiden O'Connell to be the starter. That was my choice. My choice. I didn't say it was going to be their choice. I said it was going to be my choice based off the fact that he is more accurate and had better ball placement. Now, with that said, I did say that if you look at what everything else that the Raiders done, so whether it's Tom Telesco, Luke Getsy, or Antonio Pierce, which I do believe he has a say in this too, because everything that they've added outside of Aiden O'Connell has been a dual threat quarterback. Let's just think about that for a minute. Antonio Brown, dual threat quarterback. Did I say it? Is it Anthony Brown? Not Antonio. My bad. Anthony Brown, dual threat quarterback. They brought in Gardner Minshew to even have more competition at that position. Dual threat quarterback. After they decided to cut ways with Brown, they brought in Nathan Peterman, also known to be a dual threat quarterback. All signs pointed to them wanting a dual threat quarterback. Right? So that was the one caveat that I had to say outside of the ball placement, okay, and his accuracy. I do believe primarily Getsy at this point, and maybe even Antonio Pierce, because he brought the guy in and he expects that to be the case. Maybe they were always leaning towards that to begin with. They wanted somebody that could do both. It takes a lot of pressure off the offensive line. It could open up things in the running game. You could run options. You could do so many different things with somebody that has that ability. My biggest fear is I don't think that Gardner Minshew has it under control. I don't believe that Gardner Minshew is all dialed in at that. But then again, he's got a lot he's processing through his head at the moment. The guy has proven to win games in the National Football League. He played good enough to get a Pro Bowl nod. Doesn't matter if you think he deserved it or not. He got it. It is what it is. He's had great seasons. He's a journeyman backup, and we all know that. But that doesn't mean that he has to be a backup his whole career. He's got an opportunity here. Okay? And before everybody starts saying it, I don't believe it's the money either. He's getting backup money, and I think people just think that because he makes more than Aiden O'Connell, that should give him the nod. No, he got paid backup money. He got paid high backup money, for sure. He's on the higher end of the backups. But I think when you brought him in, regardless if Aiden would have took it over or not, he was worth every penny. I mean, he's good enough to be that high-end backup. I don't think any of us should argue that. I guess our question is, should he be our starter? And that's fair. But we can't sit here and honestly say that they made the wrong choice, because I think, again, depending on what your perspective is of the situation, there's no way to tell whether they made the right decision or the wrong decision. They felt they made the best decision in this particular moment for them to have a fast start, to have a guy that can create plays with his legs and has more experience than Aiden O'Connell. And Aiden only in his second year, he's got plenty of time to develop. So it's not like you're losing Aiden O'Connell and you're not going to have this guy that can throw the ball very accurate in ball placement. I think I even heard someone mention, if you think that we're not going to see Aiden at some point, you're sadly mistaken. And that may be the case. I mean, I think it'll be ways down the road. I don't think they throw Aiden out there. I think the rope is long enough for Gardner Minshew to hang himself. But let's not make any mistake about it. Gardner Minshew, whatever. The guy who gardens the garden. Gardner Minshew is going to have every opportunity to succeed here in Las Vegas at this moment. And the guy can make plays. He can make plays. The whole idea, Antonio Pierce and his philosophy right now, and this is probably what sold Antonio Pierce, by the way, is Antonio Pierce wants to score enough points because he believes primarily in his defense. They're going to full circle at this point, bringing it back to the defense. Antonio Pierce believes in his defense so much that he wants to make sure that the Raiders have every opportunity to score as many points as possible. And when you look at the situation and you take the accuracy and ball placement out of the equation, Gardner Minshew does give you that. He gives you that extra threat, that extra extended play to kind of roll outside of the pocket and either run it to the sideline, throw it in the end zone, whatever that may look like. It also could lead into a lot of mishaps, like poorly thrown balls and interceptions and sacks and really fumbles, and all kinds of different things could happen from that as well. And that's where I'm a little concerned, because I don't think there's enough control with Gardner Minshew when it comes to him doing that. But again, maybe with the lack of pressure and someone looking down the barrel at him and it's his show to do, he'll create more, he'll throw better, he'll make better decisions, or it'll all blow up. Either way, I understand why they did it. Just because I understand something doesn't mean I 100% agree. But in this particular case, I don't 100% disagree either. Again, we're in preseason training camp, brand new offense. Essentially, two quarterbacks we're not necessarily familiar with. Luke Getsy either. He hasn't worked with any of these quarterbacks. Luke Getsy has some experience with Devontae Adams. Okay. But what does that truly mean? Right? It means Devontae's going to be ready to go. And at this point, I think what they're looking at is creating every opportunity to make sure that we have a play somewhere to continue to move the chains, control the clock, and score when we need to score. And when you need a big play, whether you got to use your feet or your arm, Gardner Minshew gives you that. And it's something that if you look back even to last year when they brought in Anthony Brown, then they brought in Peterman for him. Then they went and they picked up in the free agency, they got Gardner Minshew. All the talks about the quarterbacks. Why didn't they make a move? Why didn't they make a move for Penix? Why didn't they make a move for these other quarterbacks? Again, I think this is kind of what they wanted. And they gave the respect to Aiden to go out there and earn it. And I'm going to be honest. Depending on how you look at it, I don't think either one of them necessarily earned it. I think Gardner gets the call based off experience and the fact that he's a dual threat, can extend plays, and just has a little bit more knowledge as a whole to get off to a fast start versus Aiden continuously learning a new offense kind of takes the pressure off of. And that's the only thing that I can come up with, that I could think about when I look at the situation and evaluate it, that I come up with. Let me know in the comments down below whether or not you agree or whether or not you would disagree with that analogy. But all in all, don't base off anything that you've seen over the last 2 weeks. Don't base anything off what we're going to get in the regular season. It's going to be completely different by week 4. And you just got to hope that we continue to make the right steps and start fast, win early, and set ourselves up for the playoffs. At least that's my expectations. Anyway, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be updated every time I drop another episode. And do me a favor, hit that like button. Let's continue to place ourselves inside the algorithm so we could be noticed. Remember, I just don't do this for you. I do this for anybody who has a disability or anybody that's struggling. I have a nonprofit called Independently Blind. I will be sharing more of that with you as the months go forward. And all proceeds from this channel, any type of monetization money or anything I make, goes to my nonprofit, Independently Blind. Anyway, you guys know how I do it. I love every single one of you. I'll see you guys on the next one. Until then, stay Raider strong. Night.